So the question, it's very hard actually for me to follow up on what Stefan has just talked about. I found the presentation super inspiring, and we got a lot of insights this morning. Don't expect the same thing from me. I'm going to be more into, let's say, probably concrete examples and less about political economy thinking. So I apologize for that in advance. So the questions I wanted to tackle today are these ones. So first of all, talking about the inequalities of our current energy system. The second one is about the renewable energy communities. And to conclude, I would like to insist on one main message probably, that we are in the middle of trying to implement this energy transition, and my main message to you guys would be, if we do this energy transition, we need to do it with the people and not only for the people. I mean, already adding for the people, it's something, but it would be even better to add with instead of for. But I will come back to that along the presentation. So let's start with the inequalities in the current energy system. First of all, do you agree that energy is not only a topic for engineers? I don't know if there are engineers in the room, and I apologize for them for this question. But would you say that, or would you agree to say that energy is not only a technical issue? Let's put it that way, not to bother anyone in the room, sorry. So would you agree to that? Yes, okay, so we have a good basis. Would you agree as well that over time, over history, our energy system has created injustices and inequalities? Can you name some? It's easy to say yes, but what are they? Yes? Land? Okay, I write them down, right? Okay, I try. Sorry, my handwriting is not good, but it's to kind of have a list. Only land? So I heard something, but I'm not sure what. Climate? Pollution? Yes. What are the injustices and inequalities created over time in the energy system? The principle is that the energy system has created some inequalities over time. What are they? Can we try to make a list, or at least try to define a few points that could be tackled or should be tackled? Yeah. Yes, please. Labor. I put exploitation as well. Anything else? Losing homes. Yeah. I heard poverty. And if you allow me, I would add energy poverty. Health. Oh, that's a good one. That's a tough one. Oh yeah, that's another good point. Exclusion of decision making. Wow. Food. Oh, so water. Oh, you are going to tell me all the nexus now. Water energy, food energy, air energy, but you are right anyway. You said water, right? Anything else? Thank you for this one as well. add it here, it doesn't matter. War, conflicts, yeah? Wow, we have a list. Any other ideas? No. Power. Power in the sense, sorry, of power relations, right? Yeah. Yeah, okay, not power in terms of electricity, okay. But electricity might be another inequality as well. So thank you very much for this mapping of these inequalities and injustices related to the energy system. I think you are all right. It's all good points. It's just to show that over time, we have created this energy system, like this one. And all along the way, whatever source of energy we have been using over time, it has created injustices and inequalities. And the thing is, we are now in a system where we are supposed to go green. The main risk, or the big risk, is first of all, we don't manage to address the existing inequalities that you have listed here today, and we create new ones. And that would be really a big failure of the current process we are trying to go through. We also use another term, which is the term of energy transition. Looking at this graph, would you agree that we are transitioning? We are rather accumulating. We are not really transitioning from one source to another. And it's interesting because biomass is still part of our energy mix, whereas we were supposed to have, let's say, modern fuels with coal, oil, nuclear, etc. So biomass started way, many years ago, before the 19th century, obviously. But I wanted to start here with a story from France. So I'm sorry you can hear it. I'm from France. And I'm going to give you a lot of examples from France. I apologize for this. But at that date, at the end of the 18th century, beginning of the 19th century, we can see that biomass, wood, was a source of a big inequality. What happened in France at that time? Wood started to be used for many other usages than just domestic usage. So you had blacksmiths, for example, using a lot of wood. What happened then? The word is not here, although it could be here. Deforestation started to hit the landscape of France. But we started also developing the economy at the same time, and wood was needed for the economy as well. So what happened then? The French state decided to intervene, regulations. What did they decide to do? To shorten the size of the municipal forest. The municipal forests were used for people, for homes. So they decided to reduce the size of the municipal forest in order to create state forests and private forests. State, public hands, private actors, big companies. It reminds a bit of what Stefan was talking about this morning. For what? Because private forests and state forests were used for shipyards. Very important for the economy. What happened because of that? The price of the wood logs started to increase. So it means only the elite, the bourgeois population, was able to afford wood at home. What happened to the, let's say, popular people, to the plebs, what happened to them? They had to resort to animal residues. So we have here, and we are not talking about our century, right? We are talking about the beginning of the 19th century, and I just wanted to give you, to illustrate this with this example. We have here all the ingredients that we may face now with what we call the green transition. We have exclusion of people. We have problems with the domestic use of energy, so a lack of domestic wood for the, let's say, more vulnerable low-income people. We have the state regulation, so the state deciding to organize a shortage, how to deal with a shortage, and deciding to exclude or not some people to the benefit of some others. And we have the private capital. So we have all the ingredients, looking back at that time, of the risks we are facing nowadays with the green transition. So I just wanted to start with this. If you have questions on the way, don't hesitate to ask them. I put that here, but you were way better than me. Maybe the only thing that you didn't add on the list was ownership. We have the decision-making process, but we can also talk about ownership of energy sources and choices. We haven't talked about choices as injustice or inequalities. Why would you think could it be interesting to talk about choices? Do we have the choice as consumer? Not. Yes? Yes, why? Why? Where? I heard a yes. Okay. So you say you have the choice between fossil fuel-based electricity and non-fossil fuel-based electricity. Yeah, that's what you were saying, right? Okay. Yes, okay. In that case, you have a choice. I give you a counterexample for the no side of my question. In France, sorry again, in the 70s, France decided to invest in nuclear energy massively. What happened? Did the public opinion, was the public opinion consulted? Not at all. But because the state decided to support nuclear energy, and at some point we have way more electricity than the usage at the time, what happened? The state decided to subsidize electric heating. So now France is known to have a high share of electrical heating. People didn't have the choice. When you went to a collective multi-family building, the heating system was electrical. Nowadays, you see the problem we have with the electricity, high prices. Nuclear is working so and so. Currently, we had a lot of issues last year. So it means that people didn't have the choice, not even of the source of their energy, but on the type of usage they had in the home. So it's another example of lack of choice, even inside the home we may have because of state regulation as well. So based on that, I would like to tackle one of, let's say, key injustice, which is energy poverty. I was thinking that Stefan would tackle the question, so I didn't really define the concept in this presentation. Do you all know what energy poverty means? Do we all agree on a kind of definition? I'm not talking about energy poverty in the global south, only in the global north, because usually when we talk about energy poverty, the first idea that comes up is, oh yeah, in Africa people don't have access to energy. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about energy poverty in the global north, and everyone knows what it means, right? No, okay, thank you for the honesty. So energy poverty means the inability of some households to afford an adequate level of energy services in the home. So it means people may feel cold, may feel too warm, may under-consume in order to be able to pay for the bills, may overconsume, not because they choose to overconsume, but just because electrical heating is super efficient or inefficient rather, and they have to consume a lot to feel a bit comfort, but it's not super efficient, or because the windows are broken, or because the fabric of the building is not efficient enough. So we have a situation of people who have needs, but who are not able to meet their needs. And especially, I mean, you may have a family, if you have elderly people, they stay all day at home, and they clearly need more energy services than people like us going out, working. So if you stay home, you need domestic services as well. So we are talking about this kind of energy poverty here. So in relation to the just transition. So what is just transition at EU level? Stefan gave a lot of insights regarding this just transition. I just wanted to add a few figures. Just transition currently at EU level is a political buzzword. It's everywhere in almost all EU documents at the moment. What it means concretely, it's not so sure what it means. I mean, we don't know who they are tackling. I mean, what kind of injustices they are tackling. We don't know exactly how they are going to proceed with this just transition process. But this is what we have currently. We have a framework, and it's there. So don't misinterpret me and saying that it's a bad idea to have it. It's not what I'm saying. It's just that it's a bit blurred how it's going to work. So we have a financial mechanism already in place. Just Transition Fund, Invest EU, the European Investment Bank. So we have already money allocated to the just transition within this framework. The thing is, when you read the European documents regarding Just Transition Fund, what you mostly see is that we are going to address coal mining regions because they are the one, because of the increase of the renewables over there, they are the ones who are going to lose out of this transition. So we need to compensate for the loss. So this mechanism are thought as a way to compensate for losses, for people who are losing out of the transition. At the same time, in the document, we see that people should be at the center of this transition. So does that mean we compensate people, but they are not in the center if we compensate? I mean, do we do the just transition for them, with them, or we just compensate for the effects? It doesn't mean the same things, right? So currently, it's more about compensating for the negative effect or the unintended consequences of the energy transition. We have another recently adopted scheme called the Social Climate Fund. This fund is particularly dedicated to vulnerable households. So the ones who would be included in this energy poverty experiences in their daily life. So why do we have this fund? This fund, again, is thought as a compensation. For what? Have you heard about the EU ETS? Okay, so you may know that we are soon going to have a new EU ETS 2, on transport and building. Transport means that we are going to pay more to have diesel and gasoline in a car. I mean, okay, we are in an energy transition. We want to reduce the share of fossil fuel energy. Okay, that's the price signal in our economy currently is what we need to change the behavior, again, as what Stefan was saying. So let's add a price. But who can afford the additional burden? Exactly, always the same people. Those who are already fighting and struggling to have enough energy at home and to pay for the bill, they are going to suffer a lot from that. And when you add on top of that, the second aspect of the EU ETS, which is on buildings. So if it's on buildings, it means it's on heating as well. and heating is a key aspect of the energy poverty issue, then it means the same people who are depending on cars, who live in the peri-urban areas or in rural areas, in homes that are not super efficient, if not fully inefficient, they are going to pay a lot because of this EU ETS. So the Commission say, we are aware of that. Again, I come from France. You may have heard about the Yellow Vest movement. The protests have been lasting for a long time because of a new tax that the government wanted to introduce, while at the same time suppressing a tax on the wealth. So the injustice was too cruel here, obviously, and people went on the street. I heard yesterday during the roundtable discussion people calling for strikes. You can talk to French for strikes. We have some experience. And this Yellow Vest movement was a strike, but was way more than that, actually. It was really a protest that lasted for a month, and the government has to withdraw this new tax. So that was an interesting process. So the European Commission said, we drew some lessons from the French. Let's avoid this protest in other countries. So we are going to compensate for this new tax on transport and the building. Therefore, they decided an envelope dedicated to this compensation. Again, we are not asking what the people are needing. We are just saying, we will have problems, so let's compensate for it. So this funds has been adopted just a few weeks ago, and it's an interesting perspective because the EU ETS is supposed to start in 2027, and this fund is supposed to start 1 year before the EU ETS too. And this fund actually is very ambitious. For the money they plan for these few years, it's very ambitious. It's first to support financially people struggling with the transport and the building, or disproportionately affected by the introduction of the EU ETS, but it's also to prepare the energy transition with investment in energy efficiency, investment in electrical cars, investment in buildings, in mobility, and so on. So we want to change the word in 1 year before introducing the EU ETS2, while we haven't done that for many years before. So this is a bit of a question, but it's there. I mean, again, I'm not saying that it's wrong, but it's probably a bit ambitious for the money they have. And I don't know if you have followed the discussions and debates to agree on that. It lasted for ages, and the member state fully disagreed. So we reach a kind of compromise here, but you see how difficult it is even to think about how to compensate vulnerable people with this increase of taxes. So this is an interesting example of the current just transition in Europe. Do we consider it just because we have a compensatory mechanism? Based on what you said in your list, there are a lot of things missing here. So what could be a just transition? So first of all, talking about transition means that we talk about a decarbonization process of the energy system. So we get rid of the fossil fuels in order to have new low carbon fuels. France fights very hard to integrate nuclear into the low carbon technology. So decarbonization. And an additional concept that is very important is the decentralization. This is very important for what I'm going to say afterwards. Decentralization means that we are no longer in a top-down technocentric system, but we have dispersed system of energy production. So again, this is for the production side of the energy system. But we are aware, or the Commission shows that we are aware that this transformation of the energy system and of our economy is going to create losers and winners. and also is going to create resistance. People are not really happy with all these changes, just also for the reasons you mentioned here. So what is a just transition, or what could be a just transition if not only a compensatory mechanism? It can be a transition where people are really at the center in terms of needs, what kind of needs they have in terms of access to energy. In the discussion before, we said that there is an issue between the rich people and the more vulnerable people who don't have the same access to energy. Some are consuming more than the others. What are the needs behind that? No one talks about it. Another aspect would be to tackle the unequal access to decision making, that was said earlier in the list as well, to participation, to consultation, but also to concretely actively participate in this energy transition. And the third part would be to address the unequal benefits, unequal distribution of benefits and costs of this just transition, which is more maybe related to the compensatory aspect of it. So it means at the end of the day that this just transition, we know where we start from. We don't know where we are going to, really, but we know it has to be fair. So we have a strong normative goal that is taken over almost in all the documents. It has to be fair. And you hear a lot and you read a lot of things regarding the transition has to be fair or there won't be any transition. So it's really integrating now in the political narrative at different levels, not only at EU level, but also national and local level. So it has to be fair. How we reach this fairness, this is still quite unclear. We can wonder if we can reach this fairness with this just transition mechanism only. So what makes it possible? So from the supply side, what makes this just transition possible is the decentralization process of the energy. Until now, and in a lot of countries, it's still like this, it was a top-down system. So you had a few power plants, then the grid, then the users, that was it. Now I'm simplifying, I'm sorry, and I'm not an engineer, so if there is any engineer, I know there is some engineers in the room, please apologize for this too high simplification. The second system is what we are heading to now, is the fact that these power plants are transformed into solar panels, wind turbines, geothermal system, small hydropower, and so on, and they can be everywhere on the territory. Land use issues are raised here, but they can be everywhere. And the thing is that we are not only now, we as consumers, if I can put it like this, are not only consuming energy, but we are also allowed to produce energy. So it means our system starts to be very complex because it's multi-directional. So, but this system allows also other players to come in the game. Because so far, with this central technocentric system, state-regulated, you had either public utilities or private utilities. Now, with this system, you have a great word emerging, prosumers. We are all prosumer, or could be all prosumers. What is a prosumer? So it's a contraction of producer and consumer. So it means you can both produce energy, you can consume the energy you have produced. Typically at individual level, you put a few solar panels on your home, providing obviously that you own the home. If you don't own the home, you don't have the choice to put or not solar panels on your roof. But if you own the home, if you have the sufficient capital to invest, if you have the regulations from the state that allow you to invest and to consume, and maybe even to sell the excess energy that you are not consuming yourself to the grid, then you are the super winner of this energy transition. If you are a tenant, That makes your life a bit more complicated to be a prosumer, at individual level at least. If you don't have the investment capital, that you don't have the capacity to invest in these solar panels, it's not for you either. So this system seems to be a great opportunity, but we have to be careful how we regulate it and how we manage it. The thing is, what I'm saying now with prosumer, it's only at individual level. Good news is this system allows also collective ownership and probably, hopefully, collective participation into this energy system. I will come back to that later. But this is why now we can talk about solutions like renewable energy communities that are supported also by the European Commission. I will come back to that later. Another aspect of this energy transition, but this time from the demand side of the transition, is energy efficiency. So I guess I'm not going to tackle the topic now because it was by Stefan already. But I mean, taking energy efficiency as a tool to address what we were talking about before, the fabric of the building for people who can't afford energy or who struggle, who need to under-consume just because what the heat is going away from the home, then energy efficiency can be a kind of solution. And it's interesting to see that 75% of the building stock in Europe is inefficient. So it means we have some room here to improve the demand side. So if we improve the building, it means we also aim to reduce the CO2 emissions. The building sector is one of the main emitters, CO2 emitters right now. And in the energy transition, it's not only for the energy sector, it's also for food, water, and so on, but it's also to reduce the pollution and the CO2 emissions. So that could be a good thing. Again, the European Commission developed this renovation wave. So we are supposed to boost the energy efficiency measures, knowing that only 1% now, every year, 1% of the building are deeply retrofitted, meaning, you know, the envelope, the windows, and the heating system, and so on. So we have a long way to go to reach or to improve at least the building sector. 75% and 1%. I'm not an engineer, but I can understand there is a big gap, and it means a long time to reach this energy efficiency. The problem is this energy efficiency costs a lot of money. I mean, we are talking about money as well. So the problem is, how do you tackle the worst energy or the least energy efficient building, knowing that the people living inside need more comfort, but they can't invest in this energy efficiency system. So how do you do that? What we have nowadays is subsidies. A lot of subsidies sometimes, not enough most of the time. The problem is how the subsidies are channeled. Who are going to get the subsidies? What are they covering? Do you think it's good to change the heating system? Because we have a lot of subsidies for changing the heating system. We need to reduce the gas consumption. So everyone now is supposed to invest in heat pumps. So I don't know how it is in Slovenia or in your home country, but that's really the big trend. Heat pump, that's the solution. But heat pump is super expensive. Not everyone can really invest in heat pump. And now that the demand of heat pump, we're talking about markets here, that the demand of heat pumps has increased, it means, first of all, you have a shortage of heat pump, you have a shortage of labor to install the heat pump, and the prices of the heat pumps have increased. If I'm not wrong, I think now in France, it's roughly 14,000 euros for a new installation of heat pump. It used to be a bit lower. Now it's getting more expensive because of the situation we have now. So is it useful to invest in a heat pump if you don't renovate the building? Doesn't make much sense. But to renovate the building, again, I'm sorry, I'm taking the example of France. France decided in July this year to increase the subsidies for energy efficiency measures, which is great news. We have now 4 billion euros allocated to energy efficiency measures for 2024 only. Do you have a rough idea how much a deep retrofit costs? Well, okay, it's in France, so if you are not French, probably you can't know because every country has different prices. But in France, let's say, depending on the kinds of building, it can be between 40,000 to 70,000 euros. When you are struggling to pay your bill, when you are vulnerable, when you are a low income, can you afford 40,000 euros when the first question you ask yourself is, what kind of food can I buy for my kids? No, you can't. You have clearly other priorities. The French system says, okay, we are now subsidizing heavily these energy efficiency measures. How much do you have to pay if you go for it and you are supported by the state? For a modest household, you have to pay 52% of this amount. For the lowest income household, you have to pay 33% of this amount. Again, it's not accessible, and it creates new inequalities because people who can afford are going to have good buildings. They are going to be okay and ready for this EU ETS too, but the others who can't afford are struggling to find solutions. In a lot of countries, again, I'm taking the one I know best, France, we have the state has introduced this person. It's called Mon Accompagnateur Rénove. It means you have one person, one-stop shop, who is able to tackle the many issues related to the concrete implementation of energy efficiency. The technical side, so it means this person is able to do the diagnosis, an audit of the building to say what is to be done. It can support for the administrative and financial process to get the subsidy. So it helps building all the procedures and filling the files and so on. But, and this is an interesting part, is also here to tackle the social dimension. So it's not only about, okay, you are here, you get a renovation, but he she tries to understand what are the problems of the households, to try also to act as a kind of referral system to institutions that could help the households willing to invest or to do the energy efficiency with other issues. Let's say you have health issues because the home is damp, or you have mold in the home, or you have leaks for the worst cases. It creates health issues, but because you have the dilemma between heating, eating, and care, you don't even go to the doctor. So this guy can say, okay, before getting into this renovation, let's tackle maybe your health issue and you should go to a doctor and so on. So, okay, theoretically, it's supposed to be like this. In reality, it's probably going to be very difficult because what kind of super profile do you need for this person? It has to be a technician, an engineer, a financer, a social assistant. So it's quite new, so we are going to see, but okay, we can agree that having this support globally and not only just from the technical aspect of the building can really bring something to the household. How it's going to be implemented, this is another question, but I wanted to give you this example to say that energy efficiency alone is not enough to tackle the question of energy poverty, and that you need a holistic approach to it. And as Stefan said this morning as well, we need to avoid two things when we do that. The rebound effect. The rebound effect, have you heard about that? So the rebound effect is the fact that people may use more after the retrofitting than before. I mean, you know, we use more, it depends where you start from, because models are theoretical. And when you have a household that is already under-consuming, if it consumes a bit more after the retrofitting, is it bad? We can discuss that from an ethical perspective. But okay, maybe they would buy further appliances, or, I don't know. But we need to avoid the rebound effect, and we need to avoid the risk of renovictions, as was discussed already this morning. What happened in some countries like Germany, I'm taking another example than the French one. In Germany, for example, social housing associations, when they do this kind of retrofitting, the state impose on them to cap the increase of the rent to try to avoid this renoviction. It doesn't work all the time. And I've done a few interviews with some households, and some of them said, but you know, even if the rent is capped, the increase of the rent will be too much for me to assume. And I prefer, so it's not about renoviction directly, but it's direct in a renoviction anyway. I prefer to live in a building that is less energy efficient, because then I know the rent will be lower and I can manage my energy bill. But if I can't manage my energy bill because now it's retrofitted, but still I can't afford this, then I will lose out because my rent is going to increase. So there is this also reactions of some tenants who are afraid of not being able to pay for the rent and for the energy bill. So there is a big risk behind this energy efficiency, even if obviously it can really help tackle energy poverty. We have to think of the unintended consequences. So in this framework, what can be the role of renewable energy communities in this? So it's power to the people, as indicated here. Based on different calculations, it said that maybe up to 45% of the electricity by 2050 could be produced by renewable energy communities, or at least by people. So renewable energy communities is the new word, new wording, let's say, used at EU level now, but we used to call that energy cooperatives. And they are not new. Even in this state-centric system that I showed you, there were some room for energy cooperatives. The oldest energy cooperative are to be seen in Germany and in Italy most of the time, already in the 19th century, in the second half of the 19th century. Why? Because electricity was deployed, but there were some spots, some places that was not accessible to the grid at the time, and they were left out of the grid. And the people came together and say, well, we have some resource. Usually the resource was hydro. So you live close to a river, and you could build a small hydro system in order to provide electricity to your local community. So the first cooperative were created out of necessity, because they wanted to have electricity and they couldn't through the grid, so they decided to get it themselves. So a group of people came together to create this cooperative, and you can see in Germany, I don't know if it's clear enough, but there was a huge increase of energy cooperative also at the beginning of the 20th century. So it's not a new concept, energy cooperatives. But we have a trend since the 90s with new kind of cooperative. I mean, first of all, what I should say is that cooperatives have been created not in the energy sector. The first one have been created in the agricultural sector and also in the production sector in reaction to the exploitation, this is part of the word here, of the new capitalist system after the Industrial Revolution. So workers were facing super hard working conditions, and they decided to give oneself the right to produce something, but in their own way. So they created this cooperative. So Then we had the energy cooperative, and since the 90s, let's say, we have new forms of energy cooperatives. I mentioned, AWS in Schönau and Eco Power are the oldest one, created in the 90s. The German one is interesting because they were created in reaction to the Chernobyl disaster. And they said, we don't want nuclear power anymore. We have to act as citizens against this nuclear power. So they decided to create this energy cooperative that is still running today. They started locally, and now this energy cooperative is distributing electricity absolutely everywhere, and they distribute also green electricity. In Belgium, Eco Power is also one of the oldest energy cooperative in Europe, and I did the French example, but we are running a bit late in the creation of energy cooperative. But we have one with quite many members, and again, all of them are more or less involved in fighting energy poverty. So the new wording now is based on the Renewable Energy Directive, dated back to 2018. It was decided at EU level, and as you can see, we're not talking about cooperatives, we're talking about communities. So because cooperative has a certain meaning, especially in the eastern part of Europe, and communities seems to be more consensual than cooperatives, but it's the same kind of spirit. It means people voluntarily come together and try to contribute to this energy transition together as citizens. They own together a production unit, or they can develop projects in energy efficiency, or some of them also developed a project in EV charging points, for example. So you have a lot of options and for the renewable energy communities. These energy communities were created with three main objectives: economic, but they are not for profit; environmental, they are supposed to boost the green transition; and social objective. Social objective in terms of social cohesion, and also in terms of addressing energy poverty. So it's part of their DNA somehow. In order to have these renewable energy communities, every member state has to transpose the Renewable Energy Directive into national laws. This is from RISCOP, so the Federation of Energy Cooperative in Europe, tracker, to see what countries are doing better than others in terms of transposing this. So if you are from Europe, you can locate yourself on the map. What I wanted to say here, it's not because it's green that everything is easy. For example, Italy is green, but currently they only have 43 to 73 renewable energy communities because a lot of things are still missing, and they are faced with the resistance of distribution grid operator, for example, because it seems they make their life more difficult. So it doesn't mean green means super okay, but at least it means that it's translated in the legislation. And as a citizen, you can use this legislation to say, we can create one. What it means as well is that legislation alone is not enough. We need an enabling framework. And again, with my first example regarding the wood in the 19th century, we see clearly that the state has a role to play in order to enable or disable this kind of initiative. So this is the situation we have right now. But clearly we see big inequalities geographically. This map is showing, for example, a concentration of initiatives, mostly is in the western part of Europe, northern part of Europe, and way little in the southern and eastern part of Europe. So this is the situation we have nowadays. History plays a role here, geography as well, but history also. And you can see here, it's really hard to get the data. Depending on the sources, you have absolutely different data regarding the number of renewable energy communities created. So I just pick one here, but it can vary depending on the source. If you have a European source or a national source, it's different. But you can see that the most developed renewable energy communities are in Germany, but as I said before, Germany, it's historical. I mean, they had energy cooperative already in the 19th century. And we always compare France and Germany, sorry for that, but we always show that France is a centralized system, top-down, whereas Germany is a federal system which allows more space for local authorities, regional authorities to act. And this is probably one of the hypotheses behind the number of renewable energy communities in Germany. So you have a lot of legal status for this renewable energy community. They can be they can be like private companies. They can be like NGO. They can have an official status of cooperative. So they can have a wide range of organizational status. They can use all the energy technologies available. They can provide energy services in different ways. Energy efficiency services. They can invest, because they are not-for-profit, they can invest in funds to fund alternative projects like kindergarten in the local community, because one of their objectives is economically to promote or to add value to the region. So they can do quite a lot of different things, but what we are mostly interested in today is the membership size, to meet or to answer the point about exclusion of decision making. What is the size of the membership? Who are the members and how do they decide? This is an interesting perspective for renewable energy communities. So now I have been talking too long. Up to you now. If you compare what you know from the current energy transition process without the opportunity to involve citizens in renewable energy communities. I use the European term to avoid the cooperative or other social initiatives that we may see. If you compare that with the system with renewable energy community, what are the differences in terms of values, in terms of system, in terms of organization? Can we try that together? What would be the meaning of energy in the current energy transition, let's say without renewable energy, without citizens on board, and one with citizens on board? I wrote down your ideas. Any idea? It's not inspirational as a question. Product without rights. And on the other side, it's a common. Thank you very much for that. This is exactly what we have, actually. We have a tradable commodity currently, the energy in the energy sector. And on the other hand, we hope that we could have an energy considered as an essential service, as a common. In France, we call it a public service. Public is important in the concept. So yes, that could make a big difference. The next question was, who are the main actors, stakeholders, in the first one and in the second one? Yep. And here we hope who could be involved there. Yeah, okay, state are still is always here, like in my example with wood. State has to be here. Yeah, so we hope that we could have citizens, people, household. I use citizens not as a, let's say, a citizenship perspective, but let's say people. Yes, on top of the state and corporation, because corporations are not going to disappear that quickly. So they are still going to be here, but what the difference can be that here, this group of people might be more involved than what they were before. Third questions. Okay, what would be the role for citizens in that case, if they are here? What are the role now, and what can be the role after the creation of renewable energy communities? What are we now for the market? Consumers, exactly. So we are consumers or users. And if we go with the renewable energy communities, oh, and we can be prosumers, remember? This is a new way to use and produce at the same time. What would we be here as citizens? I heard everything and nothing at the same time. Yes. We could be decision maker. Oops. Yeah, but I would prefer the word owner here. We would own. Not only produce, but we would own it as well. And collective prosuming is also here, you are right. But it starts to be slightly different when we look at it. And decision making here means not only inside the renewable energy community, but also outside, how you can influence the shaping of the future energy system, how you can influence the decision-making process locally, but maybe also regionally and nationally and at EU level. So it means if we manage to get together, we could start to influence the decision-making process. And this is what already RISCOP, the federation of these renewable energy communities, is trying to do at EU level as well. So it's an interesting way. And so we could also be owner of the system. Currently, we are not owning anything. It's imposed on us. We don't have the choice of the energy. We don't have the choice how it's produced, how it's generated, where it's produced, and so on. Here, we could have more power in influencing this. Next question. Yeah, how is the energy produced right now? How is it organized? Centralized and distant. And this is also very interesting because when we started talking about energy transition, everyone, well, although we know we are not really transitioning, but let's say we use the wording, everyone say, oh, that's the opportunity for everyone to disperse, we will have dispersed energy system and so on. But what we can see is that actually the subsidies are going to large-scale system in everywhere in Europe, but also outside Europe. I don't know if you've heard about this project called Desertec. That was an idea to invest in North Africa, to have huge, mega huge, super great solar park there that would produce solar energy that would be connected to Europe so that we would get clean energy. What about the local population? This is not really the question. And of course, corporations were investing in that. So reproducing the kind of system we used to have. What we are talking about here, so opposite to what you've just said, what we are talking about here now is really decentralized system that would allow everyone to participate. But also, we have some issues with the decentralization process because a lot of people are protesting also against this because suddenly you see solar panels everywhere, you see wind turbines everywhere. You may have heard about the NIMBY process, which means not in my backyard. People are saying, yeah, we are pro-energy transition, we want green, but please, not too close to me. There is an opposite movement now, just to talk about that, which is called PIMBY. Please, in my backyard. So it compensates a bit for the previous one. What are the funding mechanisms of the two systems? Does the state intervene to fund the system? Absolutely. Yep. And who are they funding? Exactly. Companies. And one part of the current reform, electricity market reform at EU level, is to redefine how the subsidies are going to work. And they are now promoting what they called CFTs, contract for difference. But it's still going to the main one. What we had before was feed-in tariff. And feed-in tariff had the interest that it could go to citizens as well. When you had smaller power plant systems, smaller solar panels, for example, below a certain level of power, you could get feed-in tariff. So it means the energy, the electricity you are supplying to the grid is paid by the feed-in tariff. We can discuss how the feed-in tariff is organized, who is paying for it, but maybe we'll leave it for later, for the discussion, if you wish. What are the economic purposes? Yes. Profit shareholders. What about the new system? Sorry? Well, theoretically, it's not for profit. They are not supposed to do profit. The thing is, if they do profit, they have two ways to deal with the profits: to distribute it to the members. So the members are no longer big shareholders. I suppose that shareholders mean the powerful one. Here we are talking about the members, so people like you and me who are investing in this renewable energy company could get some return on investment, if I can put it that way. And projects. They are funding a lot of projects. The dividends that the members can get from their investment is decided collectively. So it's not, it's really decided by the members of the renewable energy community. And they decide what to do if they make profit. Okay, I gave the example of big energy communities. Usually they are rather small, and the big problem is not about giving the dividends to the members. It's more about how are we going to fund our next investment. So we are not yet there with the profit making of the small one. Maybe the big one, yes. What about the environmental purposes? Sorry? Yeah. Exploitation, extraction. Well, nowadays they are supposed to go green, right? And they are supposed to reduce CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions, supposedly. Here, what are the environmental purpose of the renewable energy communities? Sorry? They have supposed to invest in renewable energy projects. But if you look at how renewable energy are produced, you still need extraction. Lithium, cobalt, for everything. But it's not the same extraction. But still, you still have some issues here with labor rights, with human rights, how it's done. Absolutely. I'm just talking about the renewable energy communities as it's defined. Their project is really to have renewable energy and, of course, to contribute to the CO2 emissions. I'm almost there with my table. Social purpose. So profit versus, yeah, or sharing energy. What else? Okay. Oops. Sorry? Other kind of control. Yeah. Sorry, community, yeah, absolutely. Community building, social cohesion. And there is one thing for which we also have this EU transition mechanism and so on. It's jobs. Jobs are going to be lost here. Jobs are supposed to be created here. The thing is, we don't have the same kind of jobs in both, right? So it means we have to find a way. But renewable energy communities are also supposedly going to create jobs. And they are going to supposedly, again, create local added value. Okay, let's say that's for the social purpose. So is fighting energy poverty a purpose in this current situation and in there? Yep. No incentive here? Do you think they have incentive here then? More incentive. Well, the big difference is that it's one of their legislative objectives. I mean, in the law, they are supposed to fight energy poverty. It's part of their purposes. Here, clearly, they rather created, as you said, energy poverty. But what we can see, again, the role of the state is very important. Increasingly, in a lot of countries, you have social obligations imposed by the state. The companies are supposed to do something to support vulnerable households. So they have, when the state is giving a license for an energy company, they have to respect some kind of social obligations. But clearly, it's not the main purpose. And whereas here, they are supposed really to tackle energy poverty as part of their purpose. Yep. Good, very good questions. That was one point also I wanted to make. You have two kinds of renewable energy communities. Those who only sell electricity or give the energy service to their members. And you have those who not only give this service to the members, but also have normal clients. You can choose to go to an energy cooperative, for example, as a client. But you have an entry fee. And this is the problem. How do you tackle the entry fee? So if you are in, that's great. You can have a lot of services, a lot of support. You can decide. You can be part of something. You can also gain dignity. You can be legitimate. So there are a lot of co-benefits of being a member. But for vulnerable households, for example, this is the big question. So do you think, it's not part of my questions, but do you think that renewable energy communities have a diverse, in terms of diversity, membership? This is the big problem. So let's say they could tackle energy poverty through this, through the projects. They are delivering extra, so if they have the money, then they could invest in some project fighting energy poverty. The best way would be to address energy poverty here, but how to become a member is a big issue. To give you an example, in Germany, the cost to become a member, the fee you have to pay is between 50 euros to 3,000 euros. Not everybody can be in the renewable energy communities, but you have now new projects emerging in partnership with some other stakeholders, where the fees can be paid, for example, by a municipality. There is an example in Belgium, but it seems there is some discrepancy between the reports I read about this initiative and the reality of it. But still, EcoPower, for example, they are cooperating with the municipality, and the municipality, the objective is to buy shares of the renewable energy community from the municipality, and then the municipality could redistribute it to vulnerable households that they know live in a city, so that with this share, they could become a member of the renewable energy and benefit from the services of this renewable energy community, and contribute also to the decision-making process, let's say the internal governance of the renewable energy community. So that's an interesting way to look at that. But currently, so I won't have time to show you the results of the study we did, but currently what we saw in this survey is that almost the only way to address energy poverty was through additional projects. And for example, sorry again for France, but Enercop, the name I showed you before, they have a system of micro donations. So you are a member, and you can decide to give for free part of your bill to Enercop, so to the renewable energy community, and they have created a pot where they put the money coming from this micro donation. So it can be a few euros, or actually it's a few kilowatt hour that you donate. They transform it into euros, and they put that in a pot so that they redistribute it to NGOs tackling energy poverty. So it's another way to address the problem. The thing is, in this system, we miss this part because, okay, we are tackling energy poverty in terms of access, but we are not tackling the issue of making you a decision maker or owner of the energy system. So this is, that's why at the moment it's still a bit complicated to see or to give super great good example of this. It's on the way. And a lot of NGOs are really thinking about that. A lot of citizens are involved into that. And I can give you another example. It's not a renewable energy community. It's a cooperative, though, but not in the energy sector. They saw that these energy efficiency measures that we were discussing before were a problem for vulnerable households. They are the ones who could benefit the more, but they are the ones who can't afford to pay for it. So what they have decided to do is to cover the upfront cost, this 72% or 33% I was mentioning before, so that the household was able to invest in energy efficiency. But they didn't decide themselves what to do. First of all, they asked the households, what do you need? So that is very different from what we see from the top-down approach. So what do you need? And then, knowing that they couldn't afford, but not willing to give it for free, they asked the household, okay, you can't pay, but how can you contribute? And some of them said, okay, we can cook for the workers who are going to do the job. We can help the workers to do the job, so we can co-work with them. So in terms of ownership. It's not the ownership of a production unit, but it's the ownership of a project that was very interesting in this case. So it's based on a cooperative, but the cooperative is not an energy cooperative. It's another kind of cooperative, but they try also to develop this kind of project. So it means that there is a network of stakeholders already existing who is able to think of alternative ways, but in order to do that, they need an enabling framework. They need the state to give them the opportunity to do that. Otherwise, they are stuck in the current system, which is going to be way hard for them to get involved into that. So thank you for your question, because I should stop now, I guess. And I have way more slides to show, but I was too talkative. I'm sorry for this. If you have questions, I would be very happy to answer. And we could keep going, but maybe during the discussion then. Thank you.